I'll call to order the Ascension Parish Council meeting for Thursday, December 20th. If everyone would please stand for the prayer and the pledge given by Councilman Kluwat.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that we have received. Lord, let us look over everyone. Let's look always to our neighbors, to those in need. Look to the elderly and the young that are unguided. Let's look to the help that we can give them. Lord, within this nation we have some tragedies, and we ask that you take a look upon all of us. Let us guide this nation back to truth and back to the ways of good fellowship and family values. Lord, tonight we have a special intention for you. We ask that you pray for the Frederick family and the Riley family, for the speedy recovery and the health of young Connor Frederick, that he may recover and come back and be with us for 100 more years. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Kluwat. Roll call, Madam Secretary, all members present with the exception of Councilman Melanson. Chair's additions, I have two things to note. First would be meeting date changes. I'd ask that we move the January council meetings to January 10th and January 24th. Motion by Councilman Schexnayder. Second by Councilman Johnson. Any objection to that? They are moved. Thank you. And the next was the consent agenda. Would like to move item 7H off of the consent agenda. I'm sorry, not 7H, to 7G. We'll be moving that to 7I, and it will be okay. Motion and a second. Any objection? Motion passes. And Madam Secretary, please note that Councilman Melanson has arrived. Mr. President? Yep.
Yes, since you changing the dates in January, we also have a conflict in February. Maybe we can look at that also. I think the 21st is the police jury convention, and that's our meeting date. You may want to either skip that meeting or change the date so we can get our ordinances or anything else we're going to introduce, so we'll know what to do.
Okay, we'll take that under consideration and move it if needed at the next meeting, I think, once we talk about what date might work as an alternative. Thank you. All right, public comment sign-in period reminder is item number 4. If you want to speak, please come fill out a card with the secretary. Item number 5 is presentations. 5A, a musical tribute for our troops, center stage, and Ned Fasulo and the fabulous big band. Mr. Schexnayder.
Yes, we have some local soldiers that are deploying shortly, and we have a group of veteran associations that get together and support deployments of our troops. Tonight, one of them's here kind of acting as chairman for an event, Mr. Brent Gautreaux. They put on a fundraiser in order to support these soldiers as gifts and things, and so we wanted to give an opportunity for Brent to come up here and present this and let people know and encourage people to attend and support it. It's for our troops, and this is what it's all about. So Brent, let everybody know what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Councilman Schexnayder. Yeah, tonight we'd like to tell you that we have on January 3rd we're going to have this musical tribute to our troops. And what happened was we found out that one of our units here in town is going to deploy overseas for a year to Kuwait and places they're on. So we wanted to be able to support those guys while they're gone. We want to be able to send them some care packages and just take care of them. And we're in contact with the unit, their commanders and their first sergeants. And anything that they need, they're going to be talking back to us, and we'll be able to send something to them, and we'll be able to take care of things back at home also for them. So we're having the fundraiser to be able to do this will be January 3rd. Doors open at 6:30 right here at the Civic Center. It's going to be a big, giant show, something like we've never had here in Ascension Parish before. Center Stage Performing Arts Academy is going to bring their alumni back, and they're going to do a big USO-type Bob Hope kind of show. In the middle of all that, we're also going to mix in Ned Fasulo and his fabulous big band, and they'll finish out the night also with just a dance where you can get up and shake a leg and stuff like that. We'll have silent auction, cash bar, and we'll have a good old time that evening. So hopefully we'll get a big crowd out there, we'll have a good time, and we'll support this unit while they're gone and take care of the things that they need taken care of back here.
All right.
Brent, where can they purchase?
You can,
you have a
for
number?
tickets, you can call me at 485-7875, and I'll get someone out there to handle your ticket needs, or I'll come find you myself.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Item number 6 is the parish president's report. Mr. President.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to recognize Ms. Gwendolyn Blow in the Finance Department for, again, receiving an award for accounting practices here in the state for the 4th straight year. And you know, this is, I think, the 2nd award within a year, but 4 years in a row that they've received this award. So ask Ms. LeBlanc to maybe give us a little bit details on it, if possible.
Come up to the microphone.
She said, ain't
Gwen.
nothing to it.
Thank you, President Martinez. I truly appreciate this recognition, and especially on behalf of my own department, the Finance Department. Like the President said, this is the 4th straight year that we received this award. It's a national award, and it's for excellence in financial reporting, which we all know is our audit. That's what they're judging. That's our report that our auditors audit for us, and that's the reason that this report is sent to the GFOA, who's the training arm of GASB, which is the board that sets the accounting standards for all governments in the United States and Canada. So I also would like to say that I appreciate support from the President and also from the Parish Council, and I accept this recognition on behalf of my department. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, just want to let you know we've been talking with the state on Highway 44. We've had a number of accidents. I think Randy asked in his prayers to Mr. Frederick that got hurt on that stretch of roads.
Last
And
Friday night.
I think the speed limit was 45, then it went to 55, then it went to 45, then it went back to 55. So I'm going to send a letter requesting, and I have been in contact with DOTD, that we lower that back down to 45. So I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'll mention with council support and parish president support. So just want to let you know that I'll be sending that letter. The other thing, I want to recognize we have 3 special guests here tonight, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Lambert, and Ms. Kluart. So I want to recognize them, and not often we get the wives to come to a meeting. And finally, I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. Look forward to 2013, and hope you all have a safe and prosperous holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, we'll move on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda, minus item 7G. Chair would entertain a motion to
So
move.
moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any objection? Consent agenda is adopted. We will move to item 7I, which is the intergovernmental agreement between Ascension Parish and ACUD number 1 to establish an operating agreement between ACUD number 1 and the governing authority of the Parish of Ascension. Mr. Parrington, would you like to, or Mr. Joseph, I don't know who would like to give us the latest?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, we have an intergovernmental agreement, and we have been talking about it. I know previous we took it off the the consent agenda because it has some changes in it, and some of those changes was agreed. We had a meeting with the chairman, the vice chairman of ACUD1, the attorney, and it was a group all around, and we discussed the items. And also we had finance, our CPA, our audited, Tommy LeJeune, them there also to look at the numbers and everything based on what we was talking about for the $550,000. Then the agreement is, I guess, now I can turn it over to the attorney to talk about some of the items in there that we agreed on.
Well, the changes, we had one on the consent agenda before. The changes were that prior to the parish purchasing the bonds, ACUD will vote to enhance its rates 20%, which they have, and will adjust all its expenses to fully cover all cost of operations, maintenance, and debt service, including acquiring additional customers to maintain its long-term indebtedness. The original agreement had ACUD supplementing the parish president's salary to $1,000 a month to serve as the administrator, but the parish president has agreed to delay that for an additional 6 months. That was the basic changes from the matter that was moved forward from the Utilities Committee. But the basis of what the agreement does is ACUD #1 is essentially transferring most of its powers to the parish government to run ACUD #1. They're going to exist. They're going to serve almost in an advisory capacity, and the parish utility department will run ACUD #1 due the date they work for it. They're going to reduce whatever expenses they have, and they're going to raise their rates 20%. This is the condition of the parish buying their revenue bonds.
Okay. Councilman Joseph?
Yeah, and just to let you know, I have the vice chairman sitting in the audience right now, Mr. Harry Thibodeau. If anyone have any question or concern in that disagreement, he was in the meeting, and the board have authorized him to sign this agreement based on any changes on this meeting. Hopefully we don't have any changes, and we can move forward and get this over with.
Any questions?
Councilman Shakespeare?
I do want to say something. You know, I think we've had a utilities unit here, and so people had gone out, Harry, what, 16 years ago?
Longer than that.
That you officially started this?
Yeah, we was about 90, 91, something like
Yeah.
that.
And got together and took it upon themselves many free hours to get the parish headed in that direction in an area that wasn't served by water and other utilities, and got this started. And it's grown to the point now where, you know, it's sort of like little teddy bear grown into a grizzly, and it's a large endeavor now. And so I guess it's something that's grown to the point where the parish becomes more involved in it. But I want to thank all the people that put in all the hours to get us to this point where we have utilities on the West Bank, and appreciate the effort and everything of everybody there. I want to echo Councilman Joseph in that the changes, and everybody's been meeting to work things out on the equitable thing, and I think we can work with the old committee as an advisory committee. It'll be up to this council to decide exactly how everything's going to be managed, and of course administration also, but that'll be able to be done in the interim. And I think, O'Neill, we had agreed to a 30-day
Transition
period to work things, all of this out. So a lot of work has been done from that end, so we appreciate everyone's support.
Councilman Sarley?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have questions for you,
right.
sir. I just want to make some comments in general about the intergovernmental agreement this evening.
Excuse me, but could you talk up a little bit?
I don't know if my mic is even on. Can you hear me now, sir?
Now, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want to emphasize that I, like all of my fellow councilmen and council lady, want to see the Donaldsonville residents obviously keep getting a source of clean, potable water. And of course, I realize the gravity that we've discussed in the past at committee meetings before we came in front of the full council, that we don't want to harm in any way the parish's bond rating in trying to adopt this intergovernmental agreement. So putting that right at the outset, I hope that everyone will attempt to at least paint me, because I'm going to make some remarks here that might be less than palatable for a lot of us, myself included, in an accurate, if not it's Christmas season, good light. I direct everyone's attention to, I don't know what page it is, I think it's the second page, second paragraph, where it states that the ACUD number 1 shall grant the sole authority to the parish to exercise special powers necessary and convenient for carrying out its objective purposes, with the Utilities Committee serving in an advisory capacity to both the ACUD number 1 and the parish, a committee I sit on and am very passionate about. But bear in mind that directive, and now I want to skip down several paragraphs to where it says, the ACUD number 1 shall further supplement the salary of our parish president in the amount of $1,000 per month to serve as a day-to-day administrator of ACUD number 1. And I realize, as Mr. Parent said, that that won't begin immediately as we move back 6 months, but I'm going to tell you in a minute why I don't think we should do it at all. The paragraph after it, it also says, and this is not against the parish president or Mr. O'Neill Parrington, who would likely be affected under the second one, pay the district attorney's office of the 23rd Judicial District a fee amounting to $500 a month, plus pension match. If you do the arithmetic on the $1,000 and the $500 plus the pension match, and you bring it up to over a year's period of time, we're probably talking about, I don't know, somewhere close to $20,000 a year. Yet it says, as I said earlier in the document, in a governmental agreement, that the utility committee will be given the advisory capacity, and pretty much everything financially looks like in this document is going to be taken up into the parish's oversight. Now, I think everyone might remember, I voted against the parish council pay raise, as did some other of my colleagues. And it was then because of the same reasons that I'm offering against, voting against raises for the parish president or our legal counsel are here tonight. An extra $1,000, for example, just using the first stipulation, is a considerable chunk of change when you consider, and again, try to take this out of context, because I'm not asking for any more money. I voted, as I said, against the pay raise. But we were making at the time $1,200 a month to do all the things we do. And here tonight we're sitting here and saying for this one little extra service, and I don't mean to minimize it, it's going to require some work, this administrative oversight. That's very comparable to $1,200 a month, which is what we were making before the 33% pay raise. Now, Mr. Martinez, the parish president, has hired, we all know this, 2 executive assistants. I don't need to name them, we know who they are. But it was published in the paper, his words, the Morning Advocate, that because of the ambitious agenda of this parish council to both address the traffic issues and the utility issues as it relates to a parish-wide sewer system, that he felt it wasn't sufficient to have an individual, one who was Miss Beth James, who's no longer with us at the time, handle the duties of all the different segments of parish government, and so we need to divide them into 3 different areas. These individuals receive nice stipends, salaries, I should say, for that, $70,000 each plus perks, okay? And I just have to wonder why we can't use some of their services instead of going with these pay raises. In other words, work through some of the lieutenants and get the information back up on a daily management to the administrative level. I need not remind this council or the people watching at home, we just had the Lanes for Change program, the half-cent sales tax, and it failed. I've heard council men and the parish president say, well, that's not a good thing because that means the people aren't interested in better roads. Well, that's not so. The people are very much interested in better roads, at least the ones I talked to. But I think they sent us a message there, and that was to make do with what we have, as opposed to borrow all this money, pass this sales tax and so forth and so on to address that. And I'd like to end with this. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, the ACUD, number 1, is in trouble even as we speak. Why? Because they spent more money than they had. How does it help them, or even us, if we now get involved in the day-to-day administration, by having these government officials, two that I mentioned, get pay raises. And in fact, in the face of, you know, their upcoming rate increase of 20% that the people in Donaldsonville are going to have to be burdened with, and I think it's folks that could little afford that. Hope it doesn't work too much of a burden even on them. In good conscience, I have trouble saying, let's go ahead and spend some more money inside of our government when we're asking the people to brush their knuckles. And I frankly think we have other ways of taking care of the oversight and so forth than doing that. And so I'm going to offer a motion in a moment, although I think if you will, Mr. Chairman, we probably should have a continued discussion. I'm sure a lot of people want to rebut what I just said. And it would give me a chance then to offer that motion because, again, I want to reemphasize, I want to see the people of Donaldsonville get good potable water. And I do not in any way want to harm the bond rating of Ascension Parish. So please, hopefully no one will paint me that way. What I do want to do, again, is try to be a good fiscal agent with the parish dollars, the limited amount of monies that we have and so forth, and not, you know, enter into an agreement here that I think we could get rid of the language in there that talks about paying this extra 1,500 plus perks, whatever that number is, per month. So, Mr. Chairman, if I'm willing to yield now and let the discussion continue, but I would like a second round to put a motion forward, which is going to be, unless you want it now, I do support this intergovernmental agreement with the caveat that we strike the language for the pay raises for the two entities that I mentioned. And I thank everyone for listening.
We'll go ahead and take that as a motion now, so
second.
we can continue the discussion. So the motion from Councilman Satterlee to adopt the agreement with the strikeouts of the parish president's salary and the district attorney's salary in those two paragraphs. Do I have a second on
Yeah,
that?
I'll second.
A second by Councilman Melanson. Let's continue the discussion. Councilman Joseph.
Mr. Chairman, you don't mind if I go up to the podium? I just want to show this map. Let's see if I can get it up here.
There? All right.
I give everyone a copy of the map, and I just want to give you a detail of what we are talking about, the amount of money we're talking about. If you look at this map, this is the whole west side of the parish, and every line you see here, this line here is the Modest area. It goes back, if you follow my pen, back to Brewley McCall, and it comes back up to Highway 1 South, 308 South, Highway 1 North. That whole area right there is all, they have two water towers. They have one tower in Modest, and they have one on Palo Alto. That portion of, what on here? Okay. That portion right there is about pipe, water tower and everything. It's estimated about $6.5 million in the ground of assets. Approximately about 340 customers to 400 customers. Okay, an average bill in that area, in the whole area, is about $42 average bill. If you go into the other side, when you come off the Sunshine Bridge, where I'm at right here, you have the Lemonville area, you have 70. And right here, you have a 450,000 gallon water tower, and you have the water line coming from the school going to that water tower right there. That area right there is about another $4.5 million worth of assets. Okay? The circle, the area that I have circled in black right there, is the only area that does not have public water. It have private water right now, but it's in the district of ACUD1. And as you can see, it's only like 15% of that population on the West Bank outside the city limits that does not have this water. This whole area here is estimated about $10 to $12 million worth of assets you have in the ground that is already bonded, granted, loaned out, these assets. The thing here is that this is very vital to the West Bank. I understand. I just wanted to give you the understanding of what it means to the West Bank with this asset for economic development. Also, the investment. The parish is also assisting the West Bank with this bond issue. You cannot lose with this investment. And this is what the parish, as the utility committee will be doing, this is what they're going to be managing. So I wanted to at least give you an understanding of the whole ACUD one and what type of money we're talking about. And the final thing is, with 700 and plus customers, the revenues is roughly about $500 to $600,000 a year in revenues that come in here. Okay, so it's very important to Ascension Parish to invest in this here, and I'm hoping that we go through with this agreement tonight.
Okay. Further discussion. Councilman Johnson.
I just would like to say, I think that we look at the situation we're in with this, and I understand where we're going with Councilman Sadler's comments. I don't know that if you turned around and tried to hire somebody to manage a district of this size, as with the assets and the stuff that they're looking at right now, $1,000 would seem to be cheap. I also don't know of anyone who would take on the responsibility of managing this for nothing, as well as the attorney's fees and different things along those lines. I think we're getting off relatively cheap for what we're doing. I commend the parish president for agreeing to putting off for 6 months to take this, the salary that's being offered to him for this. With that, I can't support the motion and would like to make a substitute motion that we pass the intergovernmental agreement as presented to us tonight.
I second.
I have a substitute motion by Benny Johnson, Councilman Benny Johnson, to adopt the intergovernmental agreement as written, and a second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Further discussion. Councilman Todd Lambert.
Yeah, I know we're getting $550 worth of bonds we're going out for. I know we have a whole lot more debt right now, immediately, that we have to come up with. I guess I'm wondering where we're going to, I think I heard 1.2 million that we're in debt with this utility district. If we're getting $550,000 worth of bonds, where the additional money is coming from to clear this debt, that, because we're going to, if we go with this agreement, the debt is going to be ours, correct? We're going to be liable for everything on this.
For now.
We're liable anyway.
ACU,
Well, we're not liable for it now. If we don't,
Yeah, we
if
are.
we don't agree to pay it right now, our bond rating will go down. We're not liable to pay that 1.2 million, but if we don't pay it, our bond rating will go down. I realize that. That's where it's not really liable. It's a penalty on us if we don't do it. But we're not liable for it right now, correct?
we're not liable
Yeah, that's what I thought.
on the bonds. We're not, ACUD number one is not the parish, but it will impact the parish's bond rating.
But with this new resolution,
Do we become liable now?
it puts us all, it changes it.
No,
Okay.
no. ACUD number one is still in existence. ACUD number one is still going to be a separate entity. You're just going to make the decisions for it. It's going to exist, one, because there's a millage, and also because of the bonded indebtedness.
God, you want me to address some of that?
Sure.
Mr. President?
Basically, right now, we're taking this thing one step at a time, because you're gonna have to do it, can't do it all at one bite of the apple here. So what we did, the first thing, we addressed the immediate situation, the immediate danger with the bonds, and we went ahead and paid the bonds so we wouldn't default to whereas then your bond rating would go. Okay. The next problem is that the reserve fund, sinking fund, was spent. Okay. That has to be replaced.
Correct.
As long as that's not replaced, that's $380,000. As long as that's not replaced, then you still in default of your bonds. Okay. It won't ruin the credit rating, but it'll eventually, if you don't get it replaced in a timely manner, go back and say, hey, look, we've replaced this. We have to report it to some agency, well then we'll have a problem, okay? So that's 380 out this 550, okay? There's a couple other things. There was 30,000 from a loan that was 10 years ago, I think it was, 2002. So they're going to pay that back plus another small loan that they own I think owes about 50,000. So that takes care of up to 450, okay, out to 550, and then they'll put 100,000, and we will put 100,000 in reserve to make sure that next year when December comes, when the bonds are due again, that you're not going to be short. If everything works right and like it's supposed to, looking at this new management plan with the cuts and everything else, hopefully it'll take care of itself. There's a lot of other options and there's a lot of other work that needs to be done there. Now, what you're talking about, there still has some exposure out there. There's there's some different numbers. There's a suit that's filed that there's some exposure to probably to about 150,000. Okay, so that's still there. We don't know that for sure. There's engineering fees, 300,000 that we don't know. That's kind of in dispute with the board and the engineer. And there's 87,000 that's still owed the contractor on the tank. So to put it all together, yeah, you're about $1.1 million.
So
okay?
we're thinking we're going to overcome that with the rate change
No.
and the management change
No.
that we're going to be able to get?
No, that's going to
Not
be
in
more
1 year.
money. That'll be
Not in 1
step
year.
3, your final step, and that'll get you to the 1.1 million. Basically, what we've looked at is a payback of 50,000 a year over a 20-year period or 21-year period with them, and we've put that into the budget that we've worked out, where hopefully it'll with the cuts that are going to get made and everything else, it'll work out to where at the end of the year they'll be break out even and maybe make some more. The other thing was to pick up other customers. We've been in, so it's not just like as Mr. Sadley said that this is going to be an easy job we're going to be able to do all this kind of stuff. There's a lot still left to be done to make this thing whole. So, you know, we have to work a lot of hours to get this thing where it needs to be. So, again, that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, that additional debt that we were looking at.
And I will say this, okay, and I will say this directly to Mr. Sadler, that, you know, he came on board, he voted against a raise, but he took it. So he got a 25% raise without having any experience or background in this. So I'm not going to get personal about it, but I just want to mention that. So that part being said, it doesn't matter to me. That's not part of my job duties as parish president. If you want to hire somebody to do this, go ahead. Same thing Mr. O'Neill feels, I'm sure. If you want to hire an attorney, you want to hire a company to run this deal, I don't have a problem with that. If you go read the charter, this is not part of my deal, okay? And I'll put in a lot of hours, and I'll put in a lot of hours after hours. So, but I'm okay either way you want to go with this. So it's not personal. Whatever you want to do, if you want to hire somebody, I'm fine with that.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councilman Sarley?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Martinez, you said that I said, I just want to be sure that I'm not misquoted this afternoon, and I caution everybody against it. It's not going to be an easy job. I think anybody that wants to replay the film, I suggest you do so. I never said it was going to be an easy job. I said someone has to do it. I offered, however, a way of doing it without increasing our debt service towards people doing that job, and not an independent contractor hired, whether, as Mr., and I respect the viewpoint of Councilman Johnson on this, that we probably couldn't even get it done for that or whatever. I don't really know these things, but I can tell you this for a fact. We have 2 lieutenants. I said I wouldn't put the names in the record, but just so that people will be clear on this, Mr. Moose Pierce and Mr. Ken Dawson, who have been hired. And what I did offer is that those guys could oversee this administratively day to day, recommend, report back, much in the same way we're adding to us as a utility committee now serving, it says here, as an advisory capacity to both the parish and ACUD, number 1. that's in the language, et cetera. And as I said, I'm not asking for any more money on that. Now, as far as I'm taking the raise, I also took the risk of no raise by voting against it. Now, a lot of people might not consider that to be a bold move, and the President's right. In fact, I gave it as a reason. Why should I vote myself a raise? Because at the time, I was grossly inexperienced. I'm not nearly as wet behind the ears anymore, a year into this thing, and I get phone calls like everyone else does, and I've gotten a lot on this saying, what's with that? Do you support that? I don't. Okay? It's another $20,000. We're in hard economic times. I think we just need to be the best shepherds of the money. It is nothing against the parish president. I think he's doing a fine job. He's a fine man, and so forth and so on. Or Mr. Parrington in terms of the raise. But I think the money could be spent better in handling this whole situation of what I would have to characterize somewhat, maybe no one likes this language, a second bailout. We've already voted 100,000, another 550, and as far as it being good investment, I'm gonna be honest with you. Without naming names, I've talked to 4 or 5 high-up parish officials and some of my fellow councilmen. And I'm hearing from them that, oh yeah, we're gonna get it back. Oh, we're gonna get it back and make money. Nope, we're not gonna get it back. I've even heard an individual say to me, it's bad paper. I wanna give the names. And that could be a problem for me not to even let you know that, because you vote on it, and if you vote on it and it showed later on that you knew that and voted on it anyway, that could be considered malfeasance. Well, I am sure like no one else want to be malfeasant, okay? And so I really don't know if it's a good deal, frankly. I'd like to see a whole bunch more information in the way this was done. In fact, coming into the meeting, I'm delighted that we're at least vetting this process because it was part of the consent agenda. At least we've moved it out now, and we're having an open, honest, frank, and I think very healthy discussion. But again, let me emphasize, I don't want to hurt the parish rating. I'm not against the individuals per se in trying to save some of this money. I want to be sure that people get the water, et cetera. But I think we can do it within existing resources. Some of the individuals I just mentioned, not have to hire anyone else. I'm willing to do the extra work on the committee, as well as when I sit with the rest of my fellow councilmen on the full council when we make recommendations to them in the future when this stuff comes up, not asking for a penny more, et cetera. Okay? Just want to be sure, you know, I've had this happen in the past. Everybody said I was against the fire men and women. Ridiculous. I was against a special election. It cost another $70,000, which, by the way, never materialized. It's going to be later on this summer. Okay? And I was against the potential for a low voter turnout. And indeed, that's now a matter of record. That's what happened in that December 8th election, as opposed to doing it on November 6th. So I think you're going to find I'm consistent in trying to save every dollar and cent that we can in this parish to put it toward making the parish a better place. And if the people have to brush their knuckles for 20%, originally I heard it was going to be maybe double, maybe 50, whatever, and we heard if it was as much as 50, ooh, they may lose a bunch of customers to this area. I guess that Mr. Joseph was talking about and so forth, because they'll change their service or don't pay their bill. I have concerns about all that. I don't know, again, if this is a good deal or not, but I'm willing to support it tonight. If we just clean up those 2 areas and show the people, because I think we need to get real credibility back with the people, because when we ask them for half-cent sales tax and on the utility committee, I hope my constituents are listening and the rest of the people in the parish, for when I wear that bigger hat. We're not going to be able to have a parish-wide sewer system, no more than we can improve roads with existing resources without coming up with some other ways of funding that, okay? But when we're doing that process, the guarantee I want from everyone involved in it, or best I can get, is that we do that as prudent as we possibly can. That's all I'm trying to do here tonight. This is not against anyone in particular or anything. It's, I think, a chance to tell the public, though, look, we hear you loud and clear. People talk about mandate elections. I frankly think the overwhelming vote in every precinct except 2, I believe, and those 2 only went in the opposite direction by 2 and 3 votes respectively. People said no to another half-cent sale tax for roads. Let's tell them tonight that we're going to fix this bad situation, keep our bond rating, keep the people who have the water, tie all the loose ends up, and I don't want to use the word waste because I'll be held to task on it, not use money for things that we maybe could save money by using other people to do those jobs. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council member, ACUD number 1 would operate without a lawyer because that was not part of my agreement when I became the parish attorney. So you're going to have to pay a lawyer some kind of way. That's the district attorney and I have talked about this, and that was not part of what I agreed to do. he and I have talked about this agreement, and that ACUD was paying another lawyer, and it's not, I'm not going to, I'll practice law for a living, and that's not something that I'm going to do for free.
Other comments?
Yes, thank you.
Mr.
And I
Shakespeare.
know Mr. Satterley, as everyone else is interested in saving taxpayers' money. And I think by going through all of this, I think this is the best way to save taxpayers' money. We see exactly what happens as you grow some entity without the expertise oversight. The abilities of a parish president to manage something of this entity is by far the cheapest way to do it. By far. You cannot get an expert that can get the background, approach the people that needs to be approached, and go through and do everything and make the necessary decisions that needs to be made for anywhere near a percentage of the money that we're talking about. Nor can you get, for the amount of money that Mr. Satterley talked about, can you hire a lawyer to do this work anywhere. This is something that was considered. This is something that looked at. This is something that is by far the best deal that could ever be come up for the parish of Ascension. This is a utilities district that has begun a lot of construction. Anytime you're financing construction in utilities, especially now with all the things, the hoops that you have to jump through, there's a period of time where you have to get enough capital to get over that hump. ACUD is getting very close to the amount of customers it needs to get over the operating expenses and begin to make money. And as we all know, the water is a lucrative thing and very necessary thing when you come to billing, utilities department, leads to sewer, leads to all the other things that you get to become self-sufficient. This is a big area that's being serviced. The expertise that's put apart by our parish president is going to be what it takes to turn the corner and not have these tremendous laws to get us out of this situation that was put in, not, believe me, not by bad people, by very good people that didn't have the resources to manage this, okay? And so a lot of things happened that was out of their control. So now we're going to do something that's going to lead us in the right direction. I'm 200% for it. I think it's very cheap. I think we're getting off very, very well. I applaud the parish president for taking on this task. We're very lucky to have that. I may also add that our sheriff, we've got a very successful sheriff in this parish. Whenever they decided to add on to his duties, the city of Donaldsonville, it increased his revenues and everything. So those things happen by different groups. So this is something that is not in the charter. Salary was set by that. This is something additional to that. And as he says, they can continue on. We can find another provider to do it, but I don't feel comfortable with another provider doing something that's important to this. So I'm in support of the alternate motion that Mr. Johnson had put forward, and I think we need to go forward and encourage people. I sat at length with the audit report with Mr. Tommy Lejeune. Details, if anybody would like to get any details of the audit that was going through and the recommendations that was made, I'm sure he would take any amount of time for you, and I suggest that you do that because it's a lot of information to get a handle to. No one's expecting everybody to know the background I've been fooling with for a long time, and it's a lot of information. So if anybody's interested in finding out the possibilities of what can happen in the future, Mr. Joseph, myself, and parish president has taken a lot of time, and there's a lot of ideas and things that can possibly happen in the future, which naturally you don't discuss in public. But with that, I want to make sure everyone knows that we support that.
Okay, Councilman Kluat.
Hey, first of all, Harriet, thank you very much, man.
All right, man.
I know you've been down to even with the shovel in the hand and everything. I remember back, got to
Way
be
back,
close
yeah.
to 20 years sitting around on the job site, and y'all were doing that after hours and on Saturdays and Sundays. And I know the people that got the water service appreciate it, because you do have an area where you can't just punch a good well, you know? And, you know, that's something that
we had a
people
job
don't
to do and we done
realize.
it, you know?
And, anyway, thank you very much, man.
All right.
We appreciate everything, and you and the rest of the guys that started this and everybody that helped out and get it going,
Thank you,
got
sir.
that service for the people. Really appreciate that. Just a quick note, for the part about the salaries, just looking at what we got, I think, we're getting some management for about a nickel on a dollar, and we're getting, I think we're getting some legal for about pennies on a dollar, okay, right now, for that service to your group. And what you have is no conflict of interest. There's no conflict of interest.
Right.
Okay? Mr. Parrington is assigned from the DA's office, public entity. Okay? Parish president is elected official. There's no conflict of interest there. You know, he's not going to grow that to some big management position, you know, put it on sale on the stock market or something like that, okay?
That's it.
And personally, I don't see anybody here from your side of the river, sir, or anybody that's getting that service, if you're opposing anything that's going on here tonight, nor the prior hearings we've had, and I actually sit on the other committee also. And I think y'all worked it out, and you're good with the plan. Appreciate your job. Thank you.
All right, man.
Councilwoman Cazzo.
I just wanted to take a moment to comment on to Kent's question about the audit. I have invited Mr. Lejeune to come to the Finance Committee in January to report on the ACUD1 audit, so that this body will get a full report on that audit in January. And I want to also echo yours and Mr. Cluot's remarks about the cost of managing this kind of program. I believe we could go out and hire somebody for $100,000 a year to manage a sewer district. Perhaps I'm exaggerating the cost. I'm not sure. I haven't researched that. But someone with the expertise of our parish president and with Mr. Parrington's expertise, I think we are getting at rock bottom prices. So, thank you.
Councilman Joseph.
My question is, I can understand what Doc's saying, but the bottom line, I have to go back to our home rule charter. If we do not agree to it, then we have to go out commercial to do it. Do we have the time to do it with this agreement? The thing is all about the bond issuing now. Once the bond holder of it know we in negotiation or whatever, we don't have a resolution soon. Mr. President, the finance out there, they can pick up the phone tomorrow and call their bond. And it don't have the sinking fund in it. That's the bottom line. I'm right, Mr. President? Mr. Tommy Lejeune? I don't agree every time we got an agreement, but right now, these are my constituents.
That's right.
And I want a deal tonight. You know, I love to argue with you and discuss any other time. But tonight for me and my constituent, we need an answer tonight. That's the bottom line. And I don't want their rates to go up 50%, because I'm not in agreement with that. 20%? Oh, I'm going to get my phone call. Oh, I'm going to have to pay some bills, probably. On my side of the river, my constituent, y'all can argue all you want about it. But tonight, Councilman Oliver Joseph asking for a decision, up or down. Because I will let my people know 5 minutes after this meeting is over with what they got to deal with. But right now, I'm asking you to vote yes. Move on. We'll deal with the rest of it later. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
All right, we have a substitute motion by Councilman Benny Johnson and a second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to adopt the intergovernmental agreement as written. We will take a roll call on that. I'm assuming there'll be an objection, so we'll go ahead and go right to a roll call. A yes vote on this substitute will be that you agree with the substitute motion and you like the agreement as written.
Councilwoman Cazzo.
Yes.
Councilman Kluat.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes.
Councilman Joseph.
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Brian Melanson.
No.
Councilman Satterley.
No.
Councilman Shake Snyder.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
All right, the substitution motion passes, and the intergovernmental agreement is adopted. We will move on to item number 8, which is an introduction of an ordinance, budget amendment number 4, to amend the 2012 budget. The chair would entertain a motion to introduce.
Motion to introduce, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Second.
By Councilman Kluat. Any objection? Ordinance is introduced. Item number 9 is the reading of an ordinance to revoke the existing 15-foot drainage servitude that runs along the rear of Lot 2-A in Duvernay subdivision. The Planning Commission recommended approval based on the Engineering Department's recommendation. Mr. Parrington.
Purpose to revoke the existing 15-foot drainage servitude located in the rear of Lot 2A of Duvernay subdivision and relocate the drainage servitude along the near east property line of said lot as depicted on the plat attached to and made a part hereof as Exhibit A. Whereas the petition is petitioning the Ascension Parish Council to revoke an existing 15-foot drainage servitude located in the rear of Lot 2A of Duvernay subdivision, and whereas the Ascension Parish Engineering Department has reviewed and researched the questions, reported their findings to the Ascension Parish Planning Commission, whereas the Ascension Parish Planning Commission, upon review of said petition, after said being considered all the facts relevant to this request, has recommended approval of the proposed revocation request subject to the relocation of a 15-foot drainage servitude to the near east of the property line. Now therefore be it ordained that the Parish of Ascension hereby revokes the existing 15-foot drainage servitude located in the rear of Lot 2 of Duvernay subdivision and hereby accepts the dedication of 50-foot drainage servitude on the eastern property line, the same as depicted on the plat attached to and made a part hereof as Exhibit A, to repeal all ordinances in conflict herewith and henceforth repealed. Severability, if any of the ordinances held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect the provision which are given effect without valid provisions. To this end, the provision of the ordinance hereby declared it severable. The effective of this ordinance shall be 15 days from the adoption. Hereby submitted.
Motion.
Motion to open the public hearing by
Second.
Councilman Kluat, second by Councilman Johnson. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward.
Motion closed.
Motion to close by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. A motion to move
Motion.
the ordinance by Councilman Randy Kluat,
Second.
second by Councilman Johnson. Any discussion? Any objection? That ordinance is adopted. Item number 12, an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Section 17-408C2 and 17-409E, testing for compliance of specifications. Mr. Parrington.
The purpose of this ordinance is to clarify the process and timing of quality assurance and control testing reports for construction projects. Whereas Ascension Parish is a local government subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution of 1974, and whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter Ascension Parish adopted May 4, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt the ordinances regulating the lands of this parish, and whereas the Ascension Parish Regional Planning Commission adopted subdivision regulations as part of the official plan of the parish in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statutes on July 21, 1971. Whereas the Parish Council adopted regulation of Appendix 6 of the Unified Land Development Code on December 17, 2009, and whereas it is necessary to make a change to clarify the existing process and policy and purpose of testing as it relates to construction inspection processes, be it ordained that the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that Section 17-408, Paragraph C, Item Number 2, and Section 1409, Paragraph E of the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code is amended as to the attached exhibits. In the exhibits, the additions are underlined and deletions are strike-through. Severability, in the event any portion of the ordinance is held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portions shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions of it and shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. The effective date of the ordinance shall be the full effect as permitted by law. Exhibit A are the revisions of 17-408C2. Exhibit B are 17-409E. The adoption have been submitted to a vote. The vote was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing by Councilman Johnson,
A second.
second by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Motion to close.
Motion to close by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Need a motion to move the ordinance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any discussion? Any objection? Ordinance is adopted. Before we get to item 15, just want to echo Parish President's comments from earlier that on behalf of the council, certainly hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. Councilman Todd Lambert.
Motion adjourned. Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
adjourned.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Cazo. We are adjourned.